She made a billionaire want to live again because her love brought him back to life. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy emotional, life-changing stories about kindness, redemption, and second chances, please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. It is free, and it helps our team continue to bring you more meaningful tales like this one. Every view, every comment, and every share keeps our storytelling alive. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from. Are you tuning in from a busy city, or from somewhere quiet by the ocean? Wherever you are, thank you for being here with us today. Now, let us return to our main character. The morning heat of July hung softly over the California coast. The sound of waves rolled against the cliffs as a black sedan climbed the winding driveway of an oceanfront mansion. Inside the car sat Anna Reyes, a rehabilitation nurse who had spent most of her career in community hospitals, not luxury estates. She pressed her hands on her knees, steadying her breath. The driver stopped in front of wide marble steps. The house shimmered behind glass and steel, elegant but strangely cold. A house that belonged to a man who had once controlled a world of technology and numbers, and who now could barely move his own body. Anna stepped out, her uniform simple and neat, the small silver cross of her late mother tucked beneath the collar. She was led through a long corridor that smelled faintly of salt, medicine, and new money. At the end of the hall, sunlight poured into a room overlooking the Pacific. There sat Grant Hale, a man in his early 40s. Broad-shouldered even in a wheelchair, his skin pale from months indoors. 6 months earlier, his private jet had gone down near Big Sur, leaving him with spinal injuries and scars that cameras would never see. For the world, he was the fallen genius of Hale Technologies. For his board of directors, he was a liability unless he could prove he was stable and capable of leading again. Grant did not offer a handshake. He simply said, "Miss Reyes, I assume you know why you are here." "I was told this is a private contract," Anna answered softly. He gestured toward a folder on the table. "It is a 6-month agreement. You will act as my live-in rehabilitation therapist and companion. The doctors say I need consistency. The board needs to see progress. I need proof that I am not a man waiting to die." Anna opened the folder. The contract was typed in formal language, but one phrase stood out in bold letters. Companionship Rehabilitation Arrangement. "This is not a typical medical position," she said carefully. "No," he replied. "It is not about medicine. It is about perception. You will attend public appearances with me, manage my routine, and maintain the image that I am recovering well. You will be compensated generously. And when the contract ends, you will walk away." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "And what happens if you actually recover?" He gave a humorless laugh. "Then you will have done your job." Anna closed the folder. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the ocean breeze through the open window. Her hospital was weeks away from shutting down, her patients soon to be scattered. This contract could save them. Yet something about the man before her, the sharp words hiding a quiet despair, stirred an emotion she could not name. Finally she said, "I will take the job, but I do not sell illusions, Mr. Hale. I help people find what is real." His expression barely changed, but his voice lowered. "Then perhaps I have hired the wrong person, or exactly the right one." She reached for the pen. 6 months, she said, and signed her name. As her signature dried, the wind lifted the sheer curtains, letting the sunlight spill over the table, as if nature itself was blessing or warning them. Grant studied her profile, calm and steady, so different from the people who usually filled his house. He had expected a nurse. Instead, he found a woman who did not flinch from brokenness. Anna gathered her folder, ready to leave. Grant's voice stopped her. "Do not mistake this for charity, Miss Reyes. This is business." She turned, meeting his gaze without fear. "I know, but business can still heal what pride cannot." For a second, silence filled the room, and then the faintest trace of curiosity crossed his face. As Anna stepped outside, the warm sea air touched her skin. Below, the waves glittered against the rocks like scattered glass. The contract she carried would save her hospital, but she could not shake the feeling that it might cost her something far greater, her peace. Inside, Grant turned his chair back toward the ocean. For the first time in months, he did not feel completely alone. He looked at the empty doorway and murmured, 6 months. The words lingered in the room, quiet but alive, like the start of something neither of them could yet understand. 2 days later, Anna arrived at the mansion with 2 small suitcases and a heart filled with quiet resolve. The air along the coast was heavier that morning, scented with sea salt and the faint sweetness of blooming jasmine. Grant Hale's home stood still against the rising sun, beautiful but intimidating, like a glass fortress guarding its secrets. The head housekeeper, a polite woman named Mrs. Warren, met Anna at the door and led her through the marble halls. Every surface gleamed. Every sound echoed. It did not feel like a place where people lived. It felt like a museum built to honor a man who was no longer alive. Mrs. Warren stopped outside a wide doorway. "Mr. Hale is expecting you in the East Wing," she said. "He prefers punctuality." Anna nodded and entered the room. Grant sat by the window, a laptop open before him, a cane resting beside his wheelchair. He looked up briefly, his blue-gray eyes cool and distant. "You are late," he said. "It is 8 o'clock sharp," Anna replied evenly. A corner of his mouth curved, almost amused. "So you have a watch and a backbone. That will help." She set her bag down and unfolded a clipboard. "Before we begin, I need to review your rehabilitation routine, your medications, and your pain levels. I also recommend sunlight exercises twice a day. It will help restore your circulation." He leaned back, tapping one finger on the armrest. "You think sunlight can fix a broken spine?" "No," she answered, her tone calm. "But it can remind the body it is still alive." He studied her in silence, then finally gestured toward the patio. "Fine, let us see if your sunlight therapy works." Outside, the ocean shimmered under a flawless sky. Anna positioned the wheelchair on the wooden deck and began gentle range of motion stretches. Grant followed her instructions without complaint, though his jaw tightened with each movement. After several minutes, she said, "You are doing better than you think." He gave a soft, humorless laugh. "Better is not the same as normal." "Normal is overrated," she replied. "Breathing is better." He did not answer, but his eyes flicked toward her for just a second, curious. Later that afternoon, Anna explored the therapy room that had been installed beside his study. It was filled with untouched equipment, parallel bars, a treadmill, resistance bands, all perfectly arranged but covered in dust. She ran her hand along one of the rails, leaving a clean streak. Grant appeared in the doorway, watching her. "You can remove whatever you do not need. None of it helped." "Because you stopped trying," she said softly. He frowned. "You talk like failure is a choice." "Sometimes it is," she said, then turned back to the bars. "Tomorrow we start again." "Oh?" That evening, dinner was served in a long dining hall overlooking the ocean. The table could have seated 20, but there were only 2 plates. Anna ate quietly, while Grant reviewed emails on his tablet. After a moment, she spoke without looking up. "I saw a piano in the corner of the library. Do you play?" "I used to," he said without emotion. "You should start again." "Why?" "Because music works on muscles that medicine cannot reach." He glanced at her, almost surprised. "You have a lot of opinions for someone on a contract." She met his gaze calmly. "Healing requires both science and belief. I was hired to do both." For the first time, he set the tablet aside. "You remind me of my mother," he said quietly. "She never knew when to stop telling me what I needed to hear." "Then she must have loved you," Anna replied. The silence that followed was not cold. It was fragile, the kind that carried the sound of waves and unsaid words. When dinner ended, Grant remained by the window, staring into the dark water below. Anna walked past him toward the hall, then paused. "Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., we start with the parallel bars. Bring your courage. Leave your pride." He turned, a faint shadow of a smile forming. "You are not like the others, Miss Reyes." "No," she said. "I am not here to pity you, Mr. Hale. I am here to remind you that your body remembers more than your fear does." Lol. When she left the room, Grant sat for a long time, listening to the rhythmic crash of waves. The air smelled of salt and jasmine. For the first time since the crash, he did not feel like a patient trapped in a house. He felt something unfamiliar expectation. In the quiet of the hallway, Anna looked out toward the moonlit sea. The night wind brushed against her hair, and she whispered to herself, 6 months. Let us see if sunlight can truly heal the dark. The following morning broke bright and golden. The sea was calm, the sky a wide stretch of blue that shimmered against the glass walls of the mansion. Inside, the rhythm of the day had already begun. Anna arrived at the therapy room carrying a clipboard, a bottle of water, and quiet determination. Grant was waiting, dressed in a light gray shirt, his wheelchair positioned between the parallel bars. He looked impatient, as though the act of being early was already a burden. "You look ready," Anna said, setting her things aside. "I am ready to prove you wrong," he replied dryly. "Then we have the same goal," she said, smiling faintly. "Let us begin." The first few steps were clumsy. Grant gripped the bars, his knuckles pale, his breath sharp. Anna stayed close, her voice steady, guiding his movements inch by inch. The air filled with the sound of effort metal creaking, soft gasps, the faint hum of ocean wind through the open windows. After several minutes he froze, his arms trembling. "That is enough." "No," she said, calm but firm. "One more step." His jaw clenched. "You do not know what it feels like to fail your own body." "You are wrong," she said quietly. "I do. My mother lost her ability to walk after a stroke. I helped her learn to stand again. Every inch mattered. Every fall mattered too." He looked at her, surprised by the edge of pain in her voice. She did not wait for sympathy. She only nodded toward the bars. "One more step, Mr. Hale." He moved forward. His breath shook, but his feet obeyed. When he reached the end of the bars, Anna's eyes softened. "That is it. Sit down before you make me proud and ruin my composure." A short, unwilling laugh escaped him. It was the first time his laughter had filled that room in months. Later, as the afternoon light shifted to gold, Anna found him on the patio overlooking the water. He was staring at the horizon, a small portable keyboard resting on his lap. "I thought you did not play anymore," she said gently. "I said I used to. You told me to start again," he answered without looking up. "I suppose I took the order." She sat across from him. "What are you playing?" "Nothing," he said, "just scales. Fingers remember what the heart forgets." The melody that followed was slow, hesitant, like a voice finding its way back to words. Anna listened quietly, the sound mixing with the waves below. When the music stopped, she said, "It is not about how perfect it sounds, it is about what it brings back." Grant turned his head slightly, watching her expression. "And what does it bring back for you?" She smiled softly. "A feeling that life does not stop for anyone. But it will wait, if you ask it kindly enough." That evening, the house felt warmer. The staff moved more easily, as if the shift in their employer's mood had softened the walls themselves. At dinner, Grant spoke first. "Mrs. Warren tells me you spend your evenings walking by the beach. Why?" "It helps me think," Anna said. "Every day I walk, I take one photograph. I call them the quiet hours. They remind me that peace is a discipline, not an accident." He studied her for a moment. "You take pictures of the ocean every day?" "Not the ocean," she said. "The light." "Oh." Something in that answer made him look away, as if the idea of finding light again unsettled him. "Bring your camera tomorrow," he said finally. "If you insist on chasing sunlight, you might as well document this circus." The next morning, she did. As Grant worked at the bars, she snapped a single photograph. He did not pose, did not smile, but the image captured something rare, the tension of struggle and the beginning of belief. When she showed it to him later, he stared at it longer than he intended. "You make it look like I am winning," he said. "You are," she replied. "You just have not noticed yet." He placed the photograph on his desk but did not admit that he liked it. Still, he did not throw it away. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Grant rolled toward the window of his study. The photo lay under the soft glow of a desk lamp. He turned it toward the light, then toward the darkness, testing how the image changed under each. Somewhere between shadow and reflection, he realized that the nurse he had hired for appearance was slowly rebuilding his will. Down the hall, Anna sat by her window, the sound of the piano echoing faintly through the night. She closed her eyes and smiled. The music was uneven, hesitant but alive. 2 weeks later, the rhythm between them had changed. The mansion, once silent as stone, now carried faint traces of life. The morning began with the sound of piano keys and ended with the quiet click of Anna's camera. Each day followed the same pattern: therapy, coffee, sunlight, and words that lingered longer than either of them expected. Grant had started to move with more steadiness. The parallel bars no longer looked like enemies. The cane, once symbolic of weakness, now rested beside him like an old friend. But something else was shifting, something neither of them could name. That morning, Anna arrived in the therapy room to find Grant already waiting. He wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, the sunlight catching the faint scar that crossed his forearm. "You are early," she said, surprised. "I could not sleep," he replied. "The ocean was too loud." "Or maybe your mind was," she said gently. He ignored the remark and motioned toward the equipment. "Shall we begin?" They worked in silence for nearly an hour. His balance was improving, his movements more confident. When he stumbled, Anna caught his arm. The moment froze his hand gripping hers, her breath close enough to feel. Neither spoke, but the air carried a quiet recognition that something beyond obligation had begun to bloom. He let go first, his voice low. You are stronger than you look. And you are not as hopeless as you pretend, she replied with a small smile. After lunch, Mrs. Warren informed Anna that the company's annual charity gala was approaching. The board expected Grant to attend to assure investors that the company's future was secure. It would be his first public appearance since the accident. That evening, as the sky turned rose and gold, Anna found him on the terrace, looking out at the horizon. "Mrs. Warren told me about the gala," she began. "You are going, are you not?" "I do not have a choice," he said. "The board believes that a smiling photograph will fix a fractured company." "Then smile," she said, "even if it is for them. Sometimes pretending becomes practice." He looked at her sharply. "You think pretending heals people?" "I think pretending can remind them what hope feels like," she answered. A long silence followed. Finally, he said, "If I go, you will come with me. You are part of the illusion." "I am part of your recovery," she corrected, "but I will stand beside you." Tamagobe. He studied her as the sunlight reflected in her eyes, steady and sincere. "You realize everyone will think you are more than a nurse," he said quietly. "Let them think what they want," she replied. "Truth is not a performance, Mr. Hale. It is endurance." The night of the gala arrived faster than either expected. The mansion buzzed with preparation. Tailors, assistants, and publicists filled the halls. Anna stood by the window of her room, adjusting a pale blue dress that Mrs. Warren had insisted she wear. She barely recognized the reflection staring back at her, a woman composed, calm, and far more confident than she felt. When she entered the main hall, Grant was waiting near the staircase in a tailored black suit. He held his cane in one hand, his expression unreadable. For a moment, the air between them stilled. "You clean up well, Mr. Hale," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "You look like trouble." "Then we match," she replied. At the gala, the lights were bright, the air thick with perfume and whispered curiosity. Every step Grant took drew attention. Cameras clicked. Investors watched. Anna stayed close, but never intrusive, guiding him through conversations and photographs. A reporter asked loudly, "Mr. Hale, how does it feel to be back after such a tragic accident?" Grant opened his mouth, but the words caught. The crowd waited. Then Anna stepped forward, her tone calm and warm. "It feels like progress," she said. "Recovery is not about what you lose. It is about what you are brave enough to rebuild." The silence that followed was deep and unexpected. Then the room erupted in applause. Grant turned to her, his voice barely audible. "You just saved me from a very expensive mistake." "I just told the truth," she said. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the house was quiet again, Grant found her in the garden. The moonlight cast silver over the flowers, and the ocean whispered in the distance. He stopped beside her. "You handled tonight better than I did." Anna looked at him. "You walked into that room on your own, Mr. Hale. That was all you needed to do." He hesitated. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple," she said. "It is just not easy." He laughed softly, the sound unfamiliar but sincere. For the first time, the distance between them did not feel like a line to cross. It felt like the space where trust could begin. When Anna returned to her room, she placed her camera on the desk. Inside was a single photograph from that night, Grant, standing beneath the lights, cane in hand, not smiling, but alive. She looked at it for a long moment, then whispered, "This is what healing looks like." The following morning, the mansion was unusually quiet. The success of the gala had rippled through the company and the media. Newspapers called Grant Hale's return a symbol of resilience. Investors praised his composure. Yet inside the house, Grant felt the hollowness behind the headlines. He found Anna in the garden, watering the pale yellow roses near the terrace. The sunlight glowed through her hair, and for a moment, he simply watched her. When she noticed him, she turned and smiled. "You are awake early," she said. "I could not sleep," he replied. "Too many congratulations for something I barely survived." "You call." "You walked in front of hundreds of people, Mr. Hale," she said gently. "You survived more than you realize." He studied her face. "You spoke for me when I could not. You handled that room better than any executive I have ever seen." "I spoke because it was the truth," she said. "You did not need saving. You only needed to be seen." He nodded slightly. "You are good at seeing people, Miss Reyes. Maybe too good." 1. Later that day, Grant's assistant arrived with invitations for several upcoming corporate events. "The board wants to keep the momentum going," she explained. Grant waved the papers away, uninterested, but Anna placed them neatly on the table. "You should go," she said. "Momentum matters. It means the company believes in you again." "I am not sure I believe in myself yet," he said. Then let them believe until you catch up, she answered. That evening, they walked along the shore. The air was soft and cool, filled with the rhythmic sound of waves. Grant used his cane but refused her arm. They talked little, but the silence between them had grown comfortable. Do you ever miss the hospital? He asked suddenly. Every day, she replied. But I do not miss the exhaustion. I miss the people, the ones who fought to get better, not for the world, but for themselves. Do you see me as one of them? She paused. I see you as someone who stopped fighting because he forgot why it mattered. Her honesty hit him harder than he expected. You think I am weak? I think you are human, she said. And that terrifies you more than pain does. He looked at her, the fading sunlight softening the harsh lines of his face. You speak like someone who has lived too many lives. Maybe I have, she said with a faint smile. My mother used to say that people like me are born to hold broken things until they find their shape again. Grant's voice lowered. And what happens when the thing you are holding is me? She met his eyes. Then I hope you remember your shape before I have to let go. The next morning she found a small note on the piano. It was written in Grant's handwriting. Thank you for reminding me what music feels like. Beside it lay a single sunflower, bright and golden. She smiled, unsure whether it was gratitude or something more. Over the next few weeks, their routine settled into something almost peaceful. Grant's strength improved, and his humor began to surface in unexpected moments. Once, when she scolded him for skipping an exercise, he replied, I am not disobeying. I am improvising. She laughed, and the sound filled the house like sunlight through dusty windows. But peace has a fragile edge. One afternoon, while Anna prepared notes in the library, she overheard two company advisors discussing her in the hall. Their voices were low, but cruel. She is the reason his image is back in the press, one said. The board loves a redemption romance. Exactly, the other replied. Let them keep pretending. The public adores a pretty nurse and a broken billionaire. The words struck her like a cold wave. She stood frozen, the truth twisting inside her chest. Everything they had built, every genuine step forward, was being reduced to spectacle. When Grant entered the room a moment later, she turned away quickly. He noticed the stiffness in her voice when she said, Your advisors seem pleased with the success of the illusion. He frowned. What are you talking about? Ask them, she said quietly, walking past him. You might learn how much of your recovery the world thinks is real. Hi. Grant called after her, but she kept walking, the sound of the ocean rising behind her. For the first time in weeks, the mansion felt cold again, and both of them understood that the summer they had begun to believe in was starting to crack. That night, a storm rolled in from the Pacific. Rain lashed against the wide windows of the mansion, and thunder echoed through the cliffs. The calm that had filled the house was gone. Grant sat in his study, the piano silent behind him, the newspaper headlines flashing across his tablet. Every story told the same tale, the nurse and the billionaire, a love story that saved a company. He read the words again and again, his jaw tightening. It was not a story of recovery anymore. It was gossip, a marketing tool. The board had turned his pain into a product. And the woman who had helped him stand again was now painted as his lover for profit. When Anna entered the room, she looked pale but composed. You saw it, she said. It was not a question. Grant turned the tablet toward her. You knew this was happening, did you not? Her eyes widened. No, I did not. Do not lie to me, he said sharply. The photos, the interviews, the way you spoke at the gala, everything was designed to make people believe this story. I spoke because you could not, she said, her voice trembling but steady. I never sold your name, and I never sold my dignity. He wheeled closer to the window, staring into the dark sea. I trusted you, Anna. I let you into this house, into my life, and now everyone believes I hired a companion for more than therapy. She took a slow breath. You hired me to help you live again, Mr. Hale. I did that. I cannot control how the world chooses to see it. The thunder cracked above them, loud enough to make the lights flicker. For a moment, they stood in near darkness. The sound of the storm filled the silence between them. Finally, she spoke. Do you really believe I would trade my integrity for your company's publicity? I do not know what to believe anymore, he said. Maybe I believed in something that never existed. She nodded once, her face calm but her eyes full of hurt. Then there is nothing left for me to say. Anna turned and left the room. The door closed softly, but the echo seemed to travel through every corner of the mansion. Outside, she walked across the courtyard, the rain soaking through her dress. She stopped by the garden where the sunflowers had grown tall and wild. The petals bent beneath the storm, their golden heads heavy with water. She touched one gently and whispered, "Even the strongest need light to survive." Inside, Grant sat alone, the storm still raging. The photograph she had taken of him, the one where he stood beneath the gala lights, lay on the desk. He stared at it for a long time, his reflection overlapping the image. For the first time, he saw not a patient, not a symbol, but a man who had begun to believe because someone else had believed first. He reached for the phone, but his hand stopped halfway. Pride was a heavy thing, and tonight it weighed more than pain. When the morning came, the rain had passed. The sky was gray and clear, the air cool and clean. Mrs. Warren knocked on his study door with careful hesitation. "Sir," she said softly, "Miss Reyes left early this morning. She did not say where she was going, but she asked me to give you this." Grant took the small envelope from her hand. Inside was a single photograph. It was of the therapy room, taken from the corner. The parallel bars stood empty, sunlight spilling across the floor. On the back, in Anna's handwriting, were 6 simple words: "Healing ends where pride begins." He stared at the message for a long time. Then he placed the photograph beside the sunflower she had once left for him. The room felt unbearably still. For the rest of the day, Grant said little. The staff moved quietly, afraid to disturb the silence. The piano remained untouched. Yet in the late afternoon he rolled his chair toward the window, where the ocean stretched wide and endless. 6 months, he whispered. The words had once been a boundary. Now they felt like a loss. The storm had washed the garden clean. The sunflowers, though beaten and bent, still stood. For the first time, he understood what that meant. Some things break in silence before they learn how to grow again. Days passed without Anna's presence, and the mansion returned to its old silence. The staff spoke in whispers, afraid to mention her name. The therapy room remained untouched, the piano unplayed, and the air felt heavy again. Grant Hale buried himself in meetings and messages from the board. They congratulated him on the success of his public image and pushed for another appearance to maintain momentum. Each message felt emptier than the one before. One evening, Mrs. Warren quietly entered his study. "Sir," she said gently, "you have not eaten all day." "I am not hungry," he replied without looking up. She hesitated. "You used to have company at dinner. It made the house feel warmer." He looked out toward the dark sea. "It was an illusion, remember?" "That is what everyone said." Mrs. Warren nodded, then placed a small folded newspaper on his desk. "Perhaps, but some illusions make people better, even if they are not meant to last." She left the room without another word. When Grant unfolded the paper, he froze. There on the front page was a photograph Anna, standing outside a small community center in Monterey, surrounded by elderly patients. The headline read, "Former nurse of Hale Foundation launches local recovery program for seniors." In the photo, she was smiling, holding her old camera in one hand. She looked peaceful, not defeated. Grant stared at the picture for a long time. The article mentioned that the funding for her new program came from anonymous donors. He realized the only anonymous donor who had the means to help her was him, but he had done nothing. She had moved on, built something real, while he had stayed behind with his pride. That night he wheeled himself to the piano. The keys were cold under his fingers. He began to play a slow, uneven melody, the one she had once called music that lives between silence and breath. His hands trembled, but he continued until the sound filled the house again. The next morning, he asked Mrs. Warren to prepare the car. "I need to go out," he said. "To the office, sir?" she asked. "No," he answered. "Somewhere I should have gone a long time ago." By late afternoon, the car stopped in front of the community center by the bay. The building was modest, painted in soft yellow, with wide windows that faced the ocean. Inside, Grant saw a group of elderly people practicing balance exercises. Anna stood among them, her voice patient and kind. When she looked up and saw him through the glass, she hesitated but did not move. Grant opened the door and rolled inside. The room fell silent. "I did not mean to interrupt," he said. Anna stepped forward, her expression calm. "You did not. We are almost done." She turned to her group. "All right, everyone, take 5. As the others left the room, Grant looked around at the equipment: parallel bars, mats, therapy balls. Everything was simple, but alive with purpose. "This place looks familiar," he said. "It should," she replied. "It was inspired by the one in your house, the room you never wanted to use." He nodded slowly. "You did this on your own?" "I had help," she said. "People believed in what I was trying to build." "People always believe in you," he said softly. "I was too blind to see why." She crossed her arms. "Why are you here, Mr. Hale?" "To apologize," he said. Not because the world expects me to, but because I finally understand what you gave me. She looked at him for a long moment. You believed I betrayed you. I believed the worst in someone who only ever showed me the best, he said. I let my pride speak louder than truth. Anna sighed, the tension in her shoulders softening. Pride is a hard illness to cure. I know, he replied quietly. But you started the treatment. A faint smile crossed her lips. I was only doing my job. He shook his head. No, you did far more than that. The afternoon light filled the room, reflecting off the ocean through the wide windows. Grant looked around once more. This place deserves to grow, he said. Let me help you expand it. Not as charity, but as a partnership. Anna hesitated. You think the world will believe that? Let them believe whatever they want, he said. The truth is not for them anymore. It is for us. For the first time in weeks, she did not look away. The sea breeze swept through the open window, carrying the faint sound of laughter from the other room. 6 months, she said quietly. That was the deal. He met her eyes. Then let us start day one again. The moment hung between them, fragile and full of promise, like sunlight breaking through the end of a long storm. A week later, the world learned that Grant Hale had reappeared, not in a boardroom or a press conference, but at a small community center on the Monterey coast. Photographs began to circulate online. Grant standing beside Anna, surrounded by patients in wheelchairs, smiling without posing. The caption under one of them read, From Fortune to Foundation, the billionaire who found purpose again. For the first time, he did not feel anger when he saw the headlines. The story was no longer an illusion built by publicists. It was real because it belonged to the people in that center, to the quiet moments that cameras could not fake. Inside the newly expanded building, sunlight poured through the tall windows. Volunteers unpacked boxes of new equipment, a donation from Hale Technologies now redirected toward rehabilitation programs for seniors and veterans. Anna moved between them, organizing, instructing, and laughing. Grant watched her from the doorway, leaning on his cane. You have built something remarkable, he said. She turned, her eyes warm but teasing. You helped, he smiled. Barely. You did most of the work. Tamao, she shook her head. No, you gave it a name. The Hands That Heal Foundation. It sounds poetic coming from a man who used to measure everything in profit. I learned that numbers mean nothing without faces behind them, he replied. You taught me that. Later that afternoon, the foundation hosted a small event to celebrate its opening. No reporters, no investors, only patients, volunteers, and a handful of families. Grant stood at the podium, his speech written in simple words. I spent most of my life believing success meant control, he said. But control is a lonely thing. 6 months ago, I hired a nurse to help me recover. I thought she was there to fix my body. Instead, she taught me how to live again. The room grew quiet. Anna stood at the back, watching him, her expression unreadable. She showed me that healing is not a destination, he continued. It is the act of showing up for someone when it matters. It is kindness that does not ask for recognition. He paused, his voice softening. This foundation exists because one person refused to give up on another. If you ever forget what humanity looks like, look around this room. When the applause filled the hall, Grant stepped away from the podium. Anna met him halfway. You said you did not like public speaking, she said softly. I still do not, he replied, smiling faintly. But I like telling the truth. As the crowd mingled, Grant noticed a framed photograph placed on a nearby table. It was the one Anna had taken months earlier, the image of him at the parallel bars, sunlight crossing his shoulders. Beneath it, a small plaque read, The First Smile. He stared at it for a long moment. You kept it, he said. It was never mine to keep, she answered. It belonged to the moment we both stopped pretending. The event ended as the sun dipped toward the water. People lingered, talking and laughing, their voices carried by the wind. Grant and Anna stepped outside, standing at the edge of the deck overlooking the ocean. The waves rolled in steady rhythm, soft and endless. Do you ever wonder why it took so long for us to find peace? He asked quietly. Because we were too busy surviving, she said. Peace does not come to those who chase it. It comes to those who stop running. He nodded slowly. Then maybe we have stopped running. For a while they stood in silence, the golden light reflecting off the sea. The wind lifted the edge of Anna's hair, and he reached out instinctively to tuck it behind her ear. She did not pull away. You are smiling again, she said gently. So are you, he replied. Down the shore, the laughter of children mingled with the distant call of seagulls. The last light of day bathed them both in gold. For the first time since the accident, Grant felt entirely whole. And as the evening settled around them, Anna thought of how strange it was that healing could begin with a contract and end with something that asked for no signature at all. The summer drew to an end with skies of soft amber and waves that shimmered like liquid glass. The air carried that familiar mix of salt and sunlight, a quiet reminder that seasons change even when hearts wish they would stay the same. Inside the community center, the last guests from the foundation's opening had gone home. The hall stood empty now, filled only with the echo of earlier laughter. Anna was gathering papers when she heard footsteps behind her. Grant stood near the doorway, leaning on his cane, his jacket draped over one arm. The evening light fell across his face, calm and steady. "You are still working," he said. "Someone has to lock up," she replied. He smiled faintly. "You never stop taking care of things, do you?" "Only the ones worth keeping," she said softly. Grant walked closer, his steps slow but sure. "Do you remember the first day we met?" "How could I forget?" she said, looking up at him. "You told me not to mistake business for something noble. And you told me that business could heal what pride could not," he said. "You were right." Anna laughed quietly. "That might be the first time you have said those words to anyone." "Lol. Then it must mean something," he replied. He looked around the room, taking in the framed photographs along the wall, images of patients standing, smiling, walking again. Each photo captured a story of its own, and in every one there was light. "This place feels alive," he said. "You built something that will outlast both of us." "We built it," she corrected. "Together." For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of waves drifted through the open window. Grant reached into his jacket pocket and took out an envelope. "I was supposed to give you this months ago," he said. Inside was the original copy of their 6-month contract. Across the top, his signature had been crossed out, and beneath it, in fresh ink, was written, "No expiration." Anna looked at the paper, her eyes glimmering with something between surprise and affection. "You realize this is not legally binding," she said. "I know," he answered. "It is not meant to be. It is just a reminder that some promises do not need signatures." She folded the paper carefully and placed it back in the envelope. "Then I will keep it as proof." "Proof of what?" he asked. "Proof that even broken things can choose to stay whole," she said. He nodded, his voice quiet. "And proof that healing does not end when the pain does." Outside, the sky deepened into shades of gold and rose. They stepped onto the terrace, the ocean stretching wide and endless before them. The breeze was cool, gentle, carrying the scent of salt and jasmine. Anna turned to him. "So, what happens now?" He looked at her, his expression soft but certain. "Now we live. No contracts, no conditions. Just the days we are given." She smiled, the kind of smile that felt like sunrise after a long storm. "That sounds enough for me." The waves rolled gently against the shore, steady and sure. Behind them, the lights of the foundation glowed like small stars in the windows, each one carrying a story of renewal. Grant reached for her hand. She did not pull away. Together they stood, silent and content, as the last light of summer faded into evening. The world beyond still whispered of wealth, success, and second chances. But here, on this quiet coast, two souls had found something rarer, peace, that asked for nothing in return. And for the first time in their lives, both of them believed that some beginnings are disguised as endings, and some love stories are written not in promises, but in the courage to start again.